Okay, so how does virtual reality help us create a more immersive experience around our journalism, around our content? To tell us about that, please welcome the Executive Director and Co-founder of the Emblematic Group, Jamie Pallot.
Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Herzlich willkommen nach Berlin. Ich habe kein Deutsch. That is the full extent of my German, so you've heard it. Thank you. So I'm going to I try. So I'm going to talk in English about immersive journalism using volumetric VR and AR, to which, frankly, the only reasonable response is, what the hell is that? I love many things about this new medium. It's very innovative. It's very powerful. I also hate some things about it, chiefly among them the fact that it creates a lot of jargon. I'm an old school, former sort of literary type. I hate the fact that this field produces so many terms that sound complicated and actually mean pretty simple things. So I'm going to begin by talking you through some of the basic terms, get the groundwork established. So, volumetric VR, what is that? There are many synonyms for this. Volumetric, also known as room scale, also known as walk around. So can I ask, first of all, I assume everyone here has tried 360-degree video. Have you put up your hand if you've done a 360 video? Put up your hand if you've done quote-unquote real VR or volumetric. Any? Yeah, one or two. So very briefly, 360 video is great. We work in 360. I don't mean to put it down, but it's limited. It's a little like having a fishbowl on your head, okay? You have a spherical field of view. You can see all around you, look up, look down. But you can't move inside that experience. You can't get any closer to anything inside it. You can't interact with anything. So it's somewhat limited and passive. In volumetric VR, thanks to sensors which track your progress in a space, the piece knows exactly where you are, and your whole body is in the experience, right? So it's much more immersive, it's much more compelling and engaging, and it's really the future. It's what's coming next. I completely embody the experience. Okay, secondly, presence and empathy. These are very overused terms. Presence is really pretty simple, okay? VR is essentially, it's a kind of trick, right? If you plug the right combination of visual and audio stimuli into your brain, you can trick that brain into feeling like you're somewhere else, feeling like you're present somewhere else. And that's what VR does. There's a lot of theorizing about presence. It's scientifically documented, okay? It's not a novelty. We know that this works. And we know that if you establish presence, you can also generate empathy. That is, if I'm in a VR experience and I encounter characters or a situation, I can have a stronger emotional response to those characters by virtue of this medium, okay? Lastly, spatial narrative. VR is good at some things, not everything. The thing that it really excels at, that it does like nothing else can, is any story where the physical dimensions of what happened are key to understanding. For example, as a tragedy we've had so many of in the United States over the last couple of years, a police shooting of an unarmed person. You can read about it, you can see video of it, but nothing comes close to being able to literally walk the area where it happened and see, oh, here was the gun, here was the open door of the police car, now I see what could and could not have happened. So spatial narrative, very important. There'll be a test at the end, so I hope everyone remembered all those. And I'm going to move right along. A couple more quick definitions. The simple, straightforward, logical one, okay, for immersive journalism, combining visual, auditory, and physical stimuli to make the viewer feel present inside a story. Now, if I'm feeling ambitious and utopian, which I'm not, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning for me. I came from New York last night, but I'm going to run through it anyway. When we're really feeling like this is the future, it's using 3-dimensional space to literally reimagine the news. Right now, we live in a media world that is flat. And trust me, I know it sounds crazy, I know it sounds futuristic, but 3-dimensional is coming. We're going to enter a shared 3-dimensional space sooner than we would think. So, I've got a very quick intro to give you a bit more specific idea what I'm talking about. I'm taking you back a few years, and I call it prehistory because things move so fast in this medium. So this is 2009. My partner and co-founder in the company, Nani de la Peña, was working in a multimedia lab at the University of Southern California on a project about homelessness and poverty in California. She had an intern with a tape recorder who went to this, which was people lining up in a food bank in downtown Los Angeles, waiting to get free food. While the intern was there, someone waiting in that line collapsed. He was diabetic, didn't get food in time, collapsed, went into a coma. And the intern captured this on audio. Took it back to the studio, and my partner had the crazy idea of not just playing this audio and having some video and telling the story in multimedia, but of actually recreating this situation in physical space. So those are the real people. That's a very bad, dimly lit photograph of what these people look like inside the VR. And I'm going to play you a video, a little long video, but this is the best way I can show you of what it's like to be immersed in a piece. It'll start with a recreation of this experience, and after 30 seconds, you'll see someone come in on the right-hand side, and you'll see his reaction to what's going on.
There's too many people. There's too many people. Somebody just
Okay, he's having a seizure.
Okay.
Need help. Yeah, we need an ambulance. Somebody is please. Saliva is falling down right.
So you get the impression, right? You can see he's behaving as though he's actually there. He's careful not to walk into people. He's bending down to see the gentleman who's collapsed on the ground. His body's kind of tricking him into thinking that he is literally present in this space. We took this piece to the Sundance Film Festival in 2012, and we didn't know what the response would be. A lot of people said, this is crazy. You can't do this, meaning technically you can't do this, but also you can't do this, meaning this is wrong. You can't do journalism like this using this thing that looks like a video game. It's somehow wrong. Anyway, I think we were proven right at Sundance. We put thousands of people through this piece, and we saw the same reaction over and over again. People were, as you see, getting down on their knees, really engrossed and immersed, and people came out of this crying, okay? It was a very intense response to this guy's plight. So this was really the beginning of what we called immersive journalism in that sense. Now, that was 5 years ago. As I was just talking to Stefan earlier about how incredibly fast things are changing now. What's happened between 2012 and 2017 tells me that this is on the verge of becoming an actual viable mass medium. 3 reasons, okay? New hardware, new ways of capturing data, and new platforms for sharing that data. I'm going to run through those really fast. Okay, that is the headset that we used in 2012 at Sundance. You can see it's literally held together with duct tape. I don't know if you can see the signature there. It's actually signed by that guy who's wearing it, Palmer Luckey. Anyone know who Palmer Luckey is? Thank you. He was the man who sold Oculus Rift to Facebook for a small sum, $2 billion. So come a long way in those 5 years since he was building these things. But now, of course, we have a whole range of these headsets which allow you to walk around inside these spaces. The Htc Vive, which, by the way, all of these things plug into their own existing communities. They have built-in, quote-unquote, readerships, right? The Htc Vive comes with a membership of Steam, the world's biggest video game platform, 125 million users. The Sony PlayStation, which we've sold 3 million of these by now, plugs into the PlayStation community. And the Oculus Rift, of course, will eventually take advantage of Facebook and that massive community for sharing and distributing and publishing these experiences. So come a long way, and it's going to move even faster. Secondly, data capture. In that piece that I showed you, right, it looked super primitive. It looked like a really cheap video game. That's because we built it for $600. There are new techniques, literally as new as 6 months old, which let us take this to a whole new level. The first one is called photogrammetry. What that means is I can take a regular SLR camera, okay? I can walk around any space, take a lot of pictures, and then an algorithm stitches those pictures together to create a geometrically precise 3D simulation, recreation of that space in rich photoreal detail. They can look up close and it looks like a photograph. We're doing a partnership with PBS Frontline, the American documentary series. One of the pieces is about the melting of the Greenland Ice Cap. What you're seeing here is the first stage of this process with a NASA research ship that we've captured in this way. Another one is about a solitary confinement cell in a prison in Maine. So here is these look very poorly lit and dark, so this is not really showing up my point very well. But that looks pretty much like a high-resolution photograph. It is, but I can put you inside that space in such a way that you can bend down and look under the bed and see a tattered pair of sneakers, and everything that you see is incredibly rich in detail. It's an astonishing level of realism. That's photogrammetry. Now, again, going back to that early piece, those characters that you saw, the man collapsing on the ground, super primitive avatars. They were actually donated at the time by colleagues of my partners at USC. Now there's something called videogrammetry, where we can essentially take video holograms of actual people, so video quality, but people who have volume and depth. Okay, you can walk around them and interact with them, and we can take those holograms and put them into these spaces. So now we can put you inside that cell with someone who spent 5 years in that cell, and he can tell you what it was like to be there. It's powerful stuff. So I'm going to show you a quick video going back to the NASA ship. This will give you a little bit of an illustration about how this videogrammetry process works. This is the captain of that NASA research ship in the lab of our partner in LA being recorded, and you'll see people talking about the process and how it works. Let me just skip straight to it.
That's why we want to find out just how much warm water is reaching the ice and how warm that water is.
52
Inline
cameras.
is difficult, right? You've got to be kind of a little bit like showing off your space more than talking to a viewer.
When we put the scientist in the virtual reality experience, he can see the room, so he knows exactly where things are. However, in the green screen, he doesn't see anything. He's in the real world. So we want to put him in the experience first, so that he can have a better feel of the space.
So that's the ship you see there captured in that same way. OK, so now you can put those two things together. I have to apologize for this next slide. It's in that weird stereoscopic vision you sometimes get when you show 360, but you'll get the general idea. This is going back to the solitary confinement piece, and this is that inmate talking to you from the cell where he was for 5 years.
Solitary confinement and the sensory deprivation, years of it drove a relatively sane young man insane. And I started hearing voices. I started.
So you get the idea. So we've come a long way since 2012, but this medium is accelerating even more, literally, I would say day by day, in terms of the technological and the artistic breakthroughs that are being made. So I want to share with you, I think, a few things about where it's going. What's next? Cheaper, lighter headsets. We've already moved from the duct tape to those very sophisticated devices I showed you. There are more on the way. At CES in Las Vegas in February, there were volumetric headsets that will be on the market for $300. There was a lot of speculation about the next Apple phone, which may well have outward-facing sensors. Why is that important? I'll tell you why. Right now, if you want to do volumetric VR, you need a space to be sort of defined or calibrated, which has motion sensors that see where you are, and they can track your position relative to the contents. So that's why it seems like you're moving around an actual room. Within a year, we'll have phones with outward-facing sensors, so you don't need any of that infrastructure. A new smartphone will allow you to have these three-dimensional experiences. It's coming. Second, interactivity and agency. This is really the big one. I'm an old guy. I've been in media for a long, long time. I started in newspapers and then magazines. And I was in the very early days of the web. I was working for a digital web publishing company in the mid-90s. The whole trajectory, evolution of the web as digital content has been from flat, static pages to stuff that I can interact with, right? Now it's apps on my phone, and everything's doing something for me. I'm interacting with it. It's helping me get something done. That's the sort of overall meta trajectory of really all forms of media. VR is going the same way. If anyone's interested, I have one of these. This is the Google Daydream headset here with me today. I can do some demos later. It costs $80, not a huge investment, and it comes with that little lozenge-shaped controller, which has a little thumb pad. What that lets you do in terms of interacting with what you see is already pushed us way ahead into the next generation, and that's literally just the beginning. Okay. Number 3, user-generated 3D. Another thing we saw, again, at the Consumer Electronics Show in February was phones powered by a Qualcomm chip, which are capable of doing data sensing, volumetric data sensing, meaning I can literally hold up my phone, it has 2 cameras, I can do a 3D scan of this space, or of any space. So capturing something like that solitary confinement cell, which took us, a process of weeks, if not months, within a year, couple of years, anyone will be able to do that 3D capture using a smartphone. So there's a lot of 3D content eventually coming our way. And finally, I'm running down on time, so I will move it along. It's going to get social. That means both being able to be with your friends as you move around and negotiate these virtual spaces, but also hanging out with your friends in a virtual space. And this is definitely a big part of what Facebook's going to be doing with the Oculus. There are B2B applications in terms of, and I've seen some of these, sort of early prototypes of some of these, where instead of having a big conference screen, you literally feel like you're in the room with your colleagues, and it works. The hardest part of my job is explaining this to people until you've actually seen it, because I know it sounds a little sci-fi and a little crazy, but trust me, when you do it, it's astonishing how powerful it is to feel present in that shared space. So it's a bunch of what's happening. This is a question I sometimes get asked. Why? Why are we doing this? Because again, it does seem a little sort of speculative and sci-fi. I think there are 2 primary reasons, and they're actually linked, okay? So one is, again, the emotional impact. I can't describe it to you really in words, but it's documented. It's documented so much that there are even some scientists at one end of the spectrum saying, this is a little dangerous, you've got to be very careful how you use this, because it shows that whatever it is that virtual reality does, when it sort of takes over your sensory inputs in that way, it plugs into your cortex in a way that no medium has done until now. It's getting a little close to some scary areas of mind control, et cetera, but that's obviously potentially very dangerous, but it's also very powerful and something we have to learn how to use. So it's a powerful new tool for the emotions. It's also hyper efficient. Okay? One of the things that makes these experiences so emotional, the fact that you're taking in so much data, all your sensory inputs are kind of flooded. And there are other uses for that over and above just, look at this poor guy, he was in a solitary confinement cell, you should feel really bad for him. The way that I can look out at you and take in a whole degree of depth information about what's going on in this room, people nodding off, checking their email, checking their watch, when's the next presentation? Just kidding. No, it's a joke, seriously, it's okay. There are other scenarios where that 3D depth perception can help you be more efficient and more powerful than 2D media. So I'm going to leave you with total change in direction. Okay, a little bit of a schizophrenic shift, but again, sorry, it's 2 a.m. I'm feeling a little that way. So here's a project we did for the Wall Street Journal, right? And the challenge, and to show off again that new Google Daydream headset with a controller. And the challenge was, how can we look at the data that comes pouring at us second by second all through the day about the financial markets, right? Which currently you need to be studying a stream of 2D charts and graphs of various kinds to understand what's happening. How, by putting you into 3D, can we make that process faster and more intuitive and more efficient? So we worked with a couple of the top analysts at the journal about the user experience of the 2D charts and infographics they use to stay on top of what's happening. And we figured out a way, I think, to make that come alive in 3D. The inspiration, going back to sci-fi, was the movie Iron Man. I assume some of you have seen that. There's a scene in the first Iron Man movie where Robert Downey Jr. Conjures up a hologram of the city in front of him, and he sort of gives it directions. Show me all the buildings that are more than 5,000 feet high, da, 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 da. So we kind of took that as our inspiration. It's a great build-up. The next two videos are both really bad because it's hard to capture videos from these devices, but just bear with me. So this is the Google Daydream experience. And with my wheel, I'm controlling that as it comes up. Actually, I'll do that one more time because it's very fast. And up comes the entire stock market. I can zoom into a sector, say technology. I can zoom into one stock within that sector, get more information about it, zoom back out again. I can flip it over, turn it around. It's fun, as well as being more powerful. So those two analysts have now said to us, actually, this makes it, I can now get some tasks done faster using this than I can surveying my usual TD charts. A little postscript to that, Google is so happy with this for the Daydream that we're now making a similar version for the Tango device. Tango, as you know, is Google's augmented reality platform. It's going to be, well, it's sort of out in alpha/beta, but it's going to be with us in a few months. And that's where I don't need the headset anymore. I can just hold my smartphone over any area, like, for example, the floor of this room. I say where I want that chart to show up, and there it is. The same experience without a headset. I can project it anywhere I want, because the phone is depth sensing the space, so it knows what I can lay it onto. I can also share that with my colleagues around the world. So a little bit of a different tangent. So that's it. I hope I've told you a few things about where this field is going. And I know I said I've used up all my German, but I have one left, which is, ich bin fertig. Thank you.
So thank you, Jamie. We may be able to fit in one quick question if you're happy to take one. If there is one, just one here.
Hi, this is Srini. Can you actually move inside these experiences? I mean, other than, basically it seems like a closed space. What I mean is like video, basically you were talking about SLR cameras capturing one particular space. So could you do a walkthrough of Berlin and things like that? I mean, is
absolutely.
That kind of stuff?
I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear, then I did a bad job. That is the beauty of this technology. I can now walk around that space. You define a certain area. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet. But you can also program a little controller to be able to, quote unquote, teleport. So I've seen pieces that have taken buildings, 20,000 square feet buildings. I can walk around a section, click, go to the next section. So it gives you the potential to theoretically walk around as large a space as you would like. But yes, the beauty of photogrammetry is walk around, but with the same level of detail as in a 360 video. That's the breakthrough.
OK. And with that, we shall move forward and ask you, please, to thank Jamie Pallot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Sir.